another thing that we've done recently is added a new branch to the system. We created a new children's museum, but it wasn't.
Yes, you mentioned that.
And what
Where is that?
Well, it's in downtown Rock Hill, Bob, and that's a perfect example of trying to figure out how to use our unique resources in a way that creates a meaningful contribution to this community. And here's how that came about. We have a very special collection of artwork, which has been appreciated by a few people for many, many years, but not necessarily appreciated by a lot of people. It's the collection of an artist named Vernon Grant, who became very popular in the 1930s and 40s as an illustrator, had a very big career with Kellogg's, among other things. He was the creator of Snap, Crackle, and Pop. He worked with Hershey. He had all sorts of licensed merchandise. He really flourished at probably the pinnacle of American illustrators in that time in terms of that impact on sort of art history and society and what have you. He married somebody from Rock Hill. And in the 1940s, they moved from New York City back to Rock Hill. And he embraced this community, and this became his place. And he made many, many contributions to this community. He was one of the first Chamber of Commerce presidents. He brought his big city thinking about how to create brands and images to Rock Hill. He was the first person to kind of imbue Rock Hill with a sense of how it can separate itself and identify itself in relation to its big sister up the road, the city of Charlotte, and things like that. So he did a lot, and he was kind of Mr. Rock Hill and everywhere, and did all these things. His artwork, he continued with his artwork, and to make a long story short, in the late 1970s, early 1980s, there were a couple of stakeholders in the museum. Again, your point about how it takes a few people that have a passion for something to make things happen, who took an interest in his artwork and thought, gosh, this guy lives here in Rock Hill. He's got this history, Snap, Crackle, and Pop and everything, which, by the way, is certainly important, but compared to his whole life as just one little thing. And so they offered to the Grant family an opportunity for the Museum of York County to become the repository of Grant's artwork. And the Grant family agreed. And the Museum of York County then got the artwork on loan, and they created an agreement with the family that they would like to be able to use the artwork to create some merchandise and some things and some products, and in exchange for that, the family would get a royalty, but the museum would plow that money back into conserving the collection and taking care of the artwork. This stuff was done mostly in gouache. It needed to be protected and what have you. And there's a tremendously rich variety of art that's in the collection. He became known for his sort of Santa Clauses and his Mother Goose stuff, but there's much, much more. I mean, he worked in some sort of soil and water conservation area or something with the Department of Agriculture for South Carolina. So there's a lot of artwork having to do with rural life and pastoral scenes and what have you. Very clever stuff. And so the museum was the repository for many years. In 2000, we started discussions with the family, and I think it was in 2006 finally, and I think Owen was a big part of this too, because we had achieved accreditation, and the family, for their own purposes, decided to go ahead and give us the entire collection. So we now own the biggest collection of Vernon Grant's artwork that there exists in one cohesive collection. Which makes sense. And then we had that and thought someday we'll figure out a way to put this to use in a new and innovative way. We had started a discussion in 2008 with a couple of stakeholders about having a branch in downtown Rock Hill. And the idea was that we would somehow perhaps have a gallery where we could show some Vernon Grant artwork because that's authentic to downtown Rock Hill. And maybe do some other things, have a retail shop and do some other things. And a space came open that was sort of perfect for this kind of thing, and I pitched the idea to a couple of stakeholders, and they encouraged me. And Owen and I had talked for a long time. Owen knew that I had a big interest in early childhood education, and I felt like we never did enough for that very young population. We went down and took a look at the Children's Museum one day, and I kind of pitched Owen on the idea of what I want to do there. And Owen gets nervous when I start pitching ideas because, of course, ultimately somebody's got to do the work, right?
Exactly.
And so, but he turned to me and he said, or better yet, why don't we take that Vernon Grant collection and build a children's museum using that collection to interpret this landscape, and thereby we're also hitting that young children hot button that you wanted to for a long time, and what have you. And that clicked, and so my next meeting with the stakeholders, I pitched them an idea that was slightly different. I said, well, okay, things have changed since 2 days ago. And I pitched them the new idea, and they liked it even better because, quite frankly, we knew that the audience for Vernon Grant's artwork as a standalone on its own, even if we mixed it up with some of their other art stuff. And plus, we didn't want to be in the business of just presenting miscellaneous art exhibits, because guess what? There's commercial galleries that do that, and there's an arts center that's 2 doors down that does that. So why duplicate that? Absolutely. And so ultimately that idea got traction with the stakeholders, and within 30 months, we had from vision to political agreement to help support it from the city and the county with hospitality tax funds and tax increment financing funds, and then an agreement by our foundation to raise the rest of the money. We opened the museum within 30 months, and it's been boffo and great. And the great thing about it is that is a direct demonstration to the community that if you continue to support us, we can be creative in using these unique resources to do wonderful things. And not only that, but along the way, we're going to do some things that are important in terms of this community social capital, because 27% of kids in York County are not ready for first grade. So what could be better than to have an experience focusing on that population specifically and creating an environment where they can learn and create and help them get ready for school.